This is the Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me today, right next to me at Radio Row at the Super Bowl, it's my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
Doing very well. I don't know whether to stare at you, stare at the camera, or stare at the frat party that's behind us, apparently.
There is obviously, as is, to be expected here at Radio Row, there's a lot going on. There are screaming fans. There are excited people. We're also excited.
Very excited.
It's been a great week. Sheil's going to join us a little bit later to do some Super Bowl props, to do our Super Bowl pick. You and I have had a great time down here. We ran 40s yesterday.
Yep.
For people who have not seen the video, it is online.
Yes.
It is on Twitter. You can go watch us run 40-yard dashes. It's as embarrassing as you might think it is, but I beat you in a competition that involved throwing footballs. Have you recovered?
No, I feel like at my funeral during the obituary, you're going to be like, and then one time we had a throwing competition.
Oh, you're definitely going to outlive me. I can promise you that right now.
Actually, my arm, I'm shocked how my arm was just a little tight.
I was okay. I was feeling okay today.
Yeah.
My hip flexors definitely hurt more than my arm did from the running.
Calf okay, shoulder a little tight. A lot of scar tissue broke up on those throws. And I loved watching it back was funny. And then I was just talking to Ben Solak, who just walked by. And he said, yeah, I was watching the video. I could tell when you started getting into it because you started licking your fingers. I was like, oh, absolutely. I was trying to hide how I wouldn't say worried, but I was feeling the heat a little bit.
The best part was you kind of sitting up straight in your chair when you saw me, when we started to play catch, and it's like, oh shit, he can actually throw the football.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the one thing I can still do. I can actually still throw a football. Most of my other prowess is overstating it, but athletic competency has whittled away over time.
Peloton master, though.
That's all I got. I got Peloton and I can throw a football a little bit. All right, we're going to dig into this game in every way that we can. We're going to talk about both sides of the ball, all of the matchups that have come to mind. You and I have spent days, hours, weeks thinking about this game, thinking about every aspect of the matchups. Let's start with just the idea of how we got here and just the path these two teams took here. We dug into that pretty in depth with Jordan, Rodrigue, and Paul Diener Jr. on yesterday's show, if you guys want to go check that out. But I still think it's worth revisiting, kind of talking about what's at stake for these teams and just their journeys to this moment. And it's so funny because these teams were built in very different ways, but their expectations coming into this season were very different, right?
Yes.
The Rams expected to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Every choice they've made over the last year is indicative of a team that believed they were on the precipice of a championship. Trading 2 first-round picks for Matthew Stafford, trading a second and third-round pick for Von Miller, going out and getting Odell Beckham. The Stafford move was supposed to be the final flourish on the end of this thing, right? It was supposed to be the finishing touch on the build that the Rams had gone through over the first 4 years of the Sean McVay era. And for the most part, it was.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, especially earlier in the season. We were like, holy shit, this is it. This is it. This is what they needed. And there are some downturns in the middle of the year. There's some bumps in the road to this moment. But this is what the Rams were supposed to be. They were supposed to be, at least in their minds, playing in this game.
Yeah, and Sean McVay's tenure with the Rams has been really kind of just fascinating. Like as a football fan, but just from year one, 2017, and just moving on, the evolution of Goff when he had him as the quarterback, the evolution of the offense and just what they did, and seeing this kind of like, this is the final vision of it, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's just been really cool, and seeing this next chapter of it. And we've referred to it a few times already, but like that trade with the Stafford stuff was like, it felt like a moment. It was like, oh shit. Like, and not just with the Rams, but just like the league, and just like there's ramifications of that, no pun intended, but just with all that, with all these other teams, is like, oh wow, this is a whole new way to build a team, a whole new way to acquire a quarterback. There's been big trades before, but this felt different. And it just felt every chapter that we've had, okay, they don't have a first round pick. Okay, what do they do with the draft after that? How they look at the draft has been a whole thing. How they acquire these guys. They're stars and scrubs, but then it's like, it's not really scrubs. They just try and find super role players at the spots. And it's been really, really cool to see this Rams team get to this point. And it's like, this is their goal. It's not like, hey, we make the playoffs, we're happy. It's like, no, we're NFC champions. That's the number one goal. Number two goal is to win the Super Bowl.
It's kind of funny that with some teams, you try to read into their thinking and you try to understand how you get from point A to point B to point C and how things build on each other. With the Rams, you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see the way that it's built on each other. Obviously, the foundation that they established with Jared Goff and just the way they played offense, there are still a lot of those aspects to the way they play offense now. It's not as play action heavy. It's not as much under center, but there's still the bunches that they use, some of the jet motions that they use. The bones of the offense have remained the same. It's just that they needed Matthew Stafford to take it over the top. On defense, the foundation that they built with Brandon Staley last year and the system that they ran, it's still there. They're still running almost the exact same defense. I was honestly shocked when I started looking at some of the numbers, how similar it was. And I reached out to someone on their staff this week and I was like, am I missing something just with some of the different things you guys have done this year? It's like, not really. We brought more pressures on third down last year, but the bones of everything is the same. And you've seen that. You've seen each kind of incremental step of how they've tried to get here. And then the Stafford thing was the way to bring it all together. And you think about him, and we haven't really talked much about him this week or about Joe Burrow in terms of what's at stake for those guys, because I assumed we would talk about it today. And I think that the Matthew Stafford part of this is fascinating because it's such a study in how much circumstances matter for quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford is 33. He's my age. He's not suddenly a different player than he was for the first 12 years of his career in Detroit. He's a similar player, but you put him into a different situation with different help, with a different coaching staff. And now a guy who a month ago we were talking about how he'd never won a playoff game could be about to win a Super Bowl. And when you win a Super Bowl as a quarterback, and when you are not a role player in that, right? Like they're the best passing offense in football by EPA per drop back over the course of the season. We talk about you in a different way. And that's about to happen for Matthew Stafford. This guy who's kind of been hiding in plain sight in Detroit for over a decade is now about to take center stage in the biggest moment of his career for potentially a moment that'll change the way we talk about him, the way we talk about Sean McVay, the way we talk about Aaron Donald, Andrew Whitworth. I mean, this is such a feather in the cap for some of these guys. And again, that's exactly what it was supposed to be for them this season.
Yeah, every move was another wedge in the window of their window of opportunity. It was like, okay, all right, Stafford, okay, that's about an inch. Okay, Von Miller, okay, that's like a quarter inch. Ooh, OBJ, that's another quarter inch. They're just keeping it pried open. They're trying to get into that Super Bowl window because it matters. This is what we remember. Philly special. We're always going to remember Nick Foles, who's just like his career has petered off. It's just like that is what the Super Bowl can do. It's all about. It's the Super Bowl. Like you refer to everything else. You hear this frat party behind me, but it's like that is what the Super Bowl does. Everything else is referred to as the Super Bowl of blank. The Super Bowl of blank. It's the literal Super Bowl, and that's what. If you are the quarterback of that, it's I'm going to Disney World. We remember Trent Dilfer because of this stuff. Like now, imagine a guy who's had a career where he's had 5,000 yards and like I don't think got in the Pro Bowl the year he had 5,000 yards. What has the record for attempts in a season? Which is a weird stat, but still, like that's notable. Like has had these moments in his career. He was the number one pick. Like Mel Kiper said in high school, he was like this guy when he went to Georgia. He was like this guy's gonna be the number one pick in 3 years, and he was the number one pick in 3 years. And usually we refer to those guys as like generational if they've been touted this high. It's funny how there's so many players in the NFL. There's so many stories that happen week to week, season to season. And this, it's like 12 years later after he comes out of Georgia, it's like, oh yeah, he's back. All right, remember this guy? Yeah, he could do the trick shots, but now if those trick shots don't work, he has a team around him and coaches around him that aren't going to like just let it all fall apart like it's happened in Detroit sometimes.
And I think with Sean McVay and just the way that we think about him, this is it. He's been such a central figure in how the NFL has worked over the last 5 years. Even look at it now. Kevin O'Connell is about to be a head coach now, okay? Matt LaFleur, Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator went to be the offensive coordinator in Seattle. All of his assistants have gotten hired away. Brandon Staley is now the head coach of the Chargers. People are trying to take what the Rams have and apply it to their own organization. But the Rams haven't won a Super Bowl. Like typically it's the teams that ultimately win one where you try to take that foundation and replicate it somewhere else. This is the chance for somebody who has been a central prioritized figure throughout the league to really get to the top of the mountain, to be the last one standing. And it really is the last thing for him to do. His influence is undeniable, but is he going to be the guy at the end of this season? And it feels like he has a real chance to do that.
And otherwise you just become another Air Coryell. Like you become that other guy. It's like, oh, he was innovative. Yeah, we've stolen a lot of ideas. He did a lot of great things. Okay, but only like a couple of football junkies know him in 20 years from now. But again, you win these Super Bowls, then that's that picture of you holding up the Lombardi, smiling, getting the fingerprints on it. That's the image that you remember. Like, you remember, even if Tom Brady, like his first year that he won that Super Bowl, it's so amazing that you can just go, oh, which one was that? But it's the first one that he won. Like the shot of him, like putting his hands on his head. If Tom Brady never won another Super Bowl again, and he was just this nice 6-round story that he stepped in, you'll remember that shot. That these moments become iconic. And that's what's, I don't know, it's just really, really cool to see a guy come in and it was like, oh, who's this 32-year-old, 33-year-old they're hiring with a wrinkled shirt? He had the wrinkled button-down shirt. I'll never forget it. I was like, wow, I have the same shirt. And, and I've seen this guy become a head coach, and it was like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And right away, it was like, okay, this guy's doing something different, and it felt different. And this is, like you said, it's you said feather in the cap for all these guys, but especially him. It's cool to have these narratives that aren't just a week or a season. It's like, this is like half a decade.
Oh, this
now.
is built on it.
This
is 5 years in the making.
Yeah,
this is
so cool.
This is proof that the way that they have approached football in Los Angeles, which is very radically different than it is in a lot of other places, is viable. It works. It's worth chasing. Right. This would be the validation of that entire process and that entire system that they have decided to run, not only schematically, but in the way they've built this team, the way they operate, the way that they think. And that matters here.
Yes.
On the other side of this, the Bengals are on the entire other end of the spectrum, right? In the way they've built this team and their expectations coming into the year. We never thought this was going to happen.
No.
You know, we talked about it a little later on the show with Sheil. You and I have had a winding road with the Bengals here over the last 6 months, over the last year.
Yeah.
And now they're about to play in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And it's easy to say, you know, the Rams are a better team than the Bengals. The Rams have all these matchup advantages. And I do think the Rams are a better team than the Bengals. It's only 4.5. The line's only 4.5. There are a lot of Bengals believers here. And over the last 3 weeks, they've given us plenty of reasons to believe in them.
Yes. God, we say with Sheil later, but it's the second half of the season. It was so cool. We knew Burrow was good. Like Burrow always felt like a safe number one pick. You're like, oh my, that's like, it's really, this guy seems almost bust proof. Like he was just so smart and accurate and big and athletic. It was like, okay, no matter what. And seeing him reach new heights, really, as far as a pro, college, he reached the highest of highs. But as a pro, and especially in the second half of the year, was so cool. And then seeing their defense step up and throughout the season, I've compared them to the Bills a lot and just how they're structured and kind of like a no names defense. It felt patchwork at first, but seeing that their image of what the defense should be kind of work and be able to adjust when they need to adjust, and seeing that happen in the playoffs, especially against the Chiefs, it's cool seeing those kind of Jordan rules moments. I don't know how else to put it, but seeing those kind of like, we have an answer for the Chiefs and we're going to beat them, and not get scared and not get gun shy in those big moments. And that's a whole defense where it's like most people can't name more than 2 of their players. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it's just a bunch of smart, well-coached players. And it's very, very cool. And we started this season, I was amongst them going, man, you know, they should have gone Sewell. They should have got some of the O-line, but they went Chase. And it's like Chase was such a good player, but it was just more of a team-building aspect. Guess what? They won the fucking Super Bowl. Who cares? Like, who cares? Nothing else matters. We just talked about with the McVay and all that. Well, if Burrow wins in his second year, then it's like, all right, well, okay, well, then we'll figure out the team building and the offensive line afterwards, because that's what matters. It's seeing these star players step up throughout the season and then seeing like a team defense step up in the big moments too. It's
Their
really
defense, cool. I mean, has proven to be the exact type of defense you need in the playoffs.
Yes.
They're flexible. They can be hyper-specific in the way that they play.
Yep.
They can be this team that kind of changes from week to week and is this chameleon schematically. It's really played into their hands throughout the playoffs, and they've been able to do it because we've talked about it a million times. They have smart veteran players. They tackle well.
Really?
I mean, just things like that ultimately become so important in these one game little tournaments where you can just, if you need to switch your game plan on a dime, you can do that. They've been able to harness that in such an impressive way. And the Joe Burrow factor in all of this is, it's so funny to watch how these quarterbacks have brought these teams to these places, but it's been so different in the way that they've done it, right? Yeah. You know, Stafford has been in the league for 10 years. He was the kind of the last part of what the Rams were doing. Joe Burrow was the first part of what the Bengals were doing. And, you know, they're such different players, right? Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford stylistically are very, very different. But this game and this matchup between those two guys, for me, is a reminder that you need a superpower.
Yep.
You need a quarterback with a superpower. You need a quarterback that fixes problems for you, that doesn't make your offensive coordinator or play caller have to be right all the time. It's why the Rams went out and got Matthew Stafford. Yes. It was to increase the margin of error.
Yep.
It was to give themselves some leeway in these moments, to literally expand what their offense could be.
Yep.
And with Burrow, their defense has brought them here over the last 3 games, but he has been that problem solver. He has been that I'm going to make everything right, even when it's all falling apart around me, 4 to 5 times a game over the last 3 games. And that's it. It's been a dozen Joe Burrow plays and just a nonstop throwing lightning bolts stretch here from Lou Anarumo and that defense.
And that's what the line we keep going back to is get a bucket. And what a star quarterback can do, and like you said, Stafford and Burrow get it to it in different ways, is no matter what the game script has been happening, no matter what's been going on in the game, we might have had 2 picks earlier in the game, we might have had a fumble, we might have gone down 2 scores, 3 scores. It's that at any time they can just go, all right, get on my back, let's go. And honestly, last week, Burrow against the Chiefs, it was like, okay, it wasn't his best game, but all of a sudden, those big third downs, he's scrambling and scrambling and scrambling. It's like, that's getting a freaking bucket right there. He was taking it to the rack. It was not settling for a jumper. He was taking it to the rack. And that's the same thing that Stafford can do too. If receivers short
in such different ways, right?
Such different ways. He's not going to scramble.
But the end result is the same.
Yes.
And what drives it is ultimately the same. It's the same quality manifested in 2 entirely different ways. Yeah. And it's just like these teams. It's the same end result, them being in this game, manifested through in 2 entirely different means.
Yep.
All right. Let's dig into this. Let's start with the Rams offense against the Bengals defense. First thing I want to talk about, right? We've discussed about what the Bengals did to the Chiefs offense, all the drop 8 stuff, just how hyper specific and brilliantly deployed that defensive game plan was. In your mind, what is this game's version of that? Because I don't think they're going to do the same thing they did against the Chiefs, because it's a different sort of offense. So if we talk about this defense's ability to kind of develop those hyper-specific game plan-oriented attacks, what does that version look like against the Rams, or what should it look like in your mind?
Yeah, and it's limiting big plays. That's what football is limiting the explosives. The Rams are built in such a fun way, like where they can be efficient sometimes, but they can just take the top off, like literally at any point in time, like they're a convertible. But that I've never used that analogy before. I never will again. But that's exactly like watching this Bengals defense get to their different coverages and feeling like, okay, we got to turn the knob this way. We got to turn the knob this way. The Rams usually have answers for that, but you still have to make it hard. You have to change up what your looks are. You have to change up. Are we going to go 2 high here, single high here? Are we going cover 2, deep cover 2? Are we dropping 8? Oh, we're dropping 8, but we're going to change up what the look is of the drop 8. Are we going single high? Are we going 1 robber extra? All that type of stuff. That's what they have to do. They have to confuse Stafford enough. Stafford reads the game fairly well. Like, he's not just a big arm, dummy. He reads the game fairly well. If he knows exactly what you're going to be in, and you could see it happen against the 49ers when he started to get a feel, it started keying in, going like, oh, okay, they're in quarters right here. Okay, I got him. I'm going to start looking off the safety right here. That's what the Bengals got to avoid. You can't let him get comfortable. You can't let him start just predicting what you're going to be in. Oh, it's 2nd and long. Here comes Tampa 2. All right, I'm going to hit this backside dig on you. I'm going to hit this dagger. Like, you can't let it get to that point. It's going to happen. That's what good quarterbacks do. They make you guess wrong sometimes as a defensive coordinator, but that's like what they have to find. And of course they have to get pressure. And that's how you rattle a quarterback. And they have to do it without blitzing, because Stafford absolutely flamethrowers any blitz that can come at him.
So let's talk about that in a second. Yeah. I want to talk about just the idea of maybe the drop 8 look and that being in there, an arrow in their quiver now, being something they pull out again, because this Rams team, they still want to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Even though they're more willing to run the ball than the Chiefs were for most of the season, the Rams rushing game has not been that efficient. They want to sling this thing around. That's who they are at their core. So if you look at it, Matthew Stafford,
and no,
it's so different.
So funny.
I mean, it's literally the reason that you trade for Matthew Stafford.
And everyone's like, oh, it's a Shanahan offense. It's like, it's totally different.
It's really not. I mean, it's not as much anymore.
Yeah.
So you look at it, Matthew Stafford, 26th in the NFL in EPA per dropback against drop 8 looks this year. 2 interceptions on 39 dropbacks.
Okay.
The only quarterbacks who were worse in terms of EPA per dropback against drop 8 looks this year in the NFL. You ready for it?
Okay.
Jalen Hurts, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, and Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, my goodness.
Are the only guys that were worse against drop 8 looks this season than Matthew Stafford. So,
wow.
We say, is it more complicated than dropping 8 again the same way against the Chiefs? Maybe it doesn't have to be.
Right. And that seems like a good angle, doesn't it? And that's what, and drop eight's so annoying because as a quarterback, because drop eight is like, oh, I know, like, all right, I know what this coverage is. They're not going to hide it. But then you just get this extra body in the throwing lane. If anyone's ever played basketball.
And they were getting to it different ways, right?
Yes.
They were making it unpredictable enough where you hold on to it for one more beat.
Yep. And it was drop eight to me when I first kind of like went against drop eight as a quarterback. It was Tampa 2, Tampa 2, Tampa 2, Tampa 2. Like that was just drop eight, Tampa 2, P2. That's what they called it. And now P dropper. It always cracked me up. I was like, why is it called P dropper? Because it is. I was like, okay, P dropper. That's drop eight, I guess. And what the Bengals did, especially last week, was they had like 2 snaps of 3 buzz. I was doing the Twitch stream on it. And I was like, all right, here's Trey Flowers. There's dime personnel. Here comes Robert again. Oh, shit. They went cover 3 here.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
That's exactly what they want.
Yes.
Right? It's lulling you, because that's what you need against this team. You need him to hold on to the ball because you can't blitz. So if they go to more of those looks, not 45% of the time like they did against the Chiefs in the second half, but if they sprinkle it in a little bit more, and they've been willing to do it, they've dropped 8 more than any other defense in the league over the second half of this season, independent of the Chiefs game. So if they do that a little bit more often, what are the Rams' solutions that the Chiefs did not have in the conference championship game?
Change up your play calls first off. Like, hey, they're dropping 8 against you. Let's stop running short game or quick game. The thing with drop 8, it's designed to beat the shit out of quick game. It gets arms in the lanes. If you ever played basketball, you're going to get 2-3 zone. That's what it's doing. You're just putting arms in the lanes. It's like playing Syracuse. And when you're doing that, and the Chiefs, really this year especially, they're built off those 5 to 10 yard throws. And they're also
because that was the evolution they had to follow.
Yes,
when teams started playing more deep shells against them.
And that's what they had to do.
It's all circuit.
Isn't it amazing?
It all comes back around, baby.
It all comes. It's all connected. And so the Chiefs just kept running their stuff. They were running the high lows that actually we were. I'm going to pat myself on the back here, but that's what we thought they would do. They're high lows, but now they got the 8th guy there, and boom, that was like all of a sudden they just couldn't get to that spot. What the Rams do, though,
high, low, low.
Yeah, exactly. What the Rams do, though, they have a willingness to run the ball, which is one way you get them out of it. Okay, they're expecting to drop into coverage. Now, oh shit, I got to play the run. Yep. The other way is beat them over the top, and the Rams are built to do that. That's why you have Matthew Stafford. The Rams love being in empty formations. They did it last week on 1st and 10 against the 49ers. They've been doing this whole season, starting against the Bears. What was that, week 1, week 2? Oh, my God. Week 1, right? It's all blended together. My God, that was 20-something weeks ago. That's when Bengals fans are still pretty mad at me. So, but anyways, so the Rams will go into empty, and they'll use chip help with a running back and their tight end. They boom them. They bang the ends. That's funny because so real quick, we had different terminology for what the chip help was. So if it was tight end, it was bang. You know, if it was both the guys chipping, it was boom to me. So that's why it just like went back to about 5 years ago.
They boomed them. It makes sense. It makes intuitive sense.
They boomed it. What's so cool, most empty concepts are quick game, like I've mentioned before. This is actually what Bengals fans know because they were so frustrated with the Zach Taylor offense last year. It was like everyone's just rallying because we go empty and we run quick game. Everything's short. What the Rams do is run 7-step fucking Mike Martz concepts out of empty, and they push the ball down the field. And that's how you get them out of drop 8. They're trying to play top down on you. All right, take the top off. Hit those intermediate areas, the 15 to 25-yard areas. And that's what the Rams are. It's not like they've never done it. Oh, it's not like you just said, it was how many drop 8s that Stafford's gone against? 38. It's not like the Rams have only done this play or this concept formation 38 times. They do it every game against every defense, and they have different concepts.
They've run more empty than any other team in the NFL, and their version of it is unlike any other empty package I've seen in the NFL, I think, ever since I've started watching the game.
Some teams would have it because you're trying to get an empty check, and it's just like, okay, you have like 2 plays of it, and it's just all it is. They have like a whole package of plays on their call sheet just with these concepts. They get to sail. They get to high-low scissor concepts. They get to like backside digs. They get to Y cross where Cooper Kupp's coming across.
The through line between all of those being aggressive, deeper concepts that you typically don't run out of empty looks.
When you usually run those are 7-man protection concepts where you have the tight end chip helping, or it's where you see the back. Again, the Bengals offense has done this, which is kind of funny, where you have the tight end off and then boom, they pick up the Sam, they pick up the Will. And it's been really cool what empty can do. And I don't think the Bengals will bring much pressure, is it just lets you get a feel for what coverage you're going to get as a quarterback. You get to sit there and go, okay, because you can't disguise as much. Everybody's spread out. You can't bring a slot pressure, else guy has to cap it all 15 yards out. Okay, I know what's coming over here. And the Rams offensive line does a really, really good job of picking stuff up and sorting stuff out. And that's their strength. And so like their strength is one of their quiver in their arrows, as you would say, one of the poison dart that they have is this formation and getting to these plays. And that's really a great way to beat drop 8. And now the Rams are probably going to be expecting it. They're not going to be surprised like Mahomes and Andy Reid and all them were in the second half. So that's something that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, what is the curveball? What is the thing that they haven't seen? And I think that's the big question here, because I don't think it's as simple as we're going to do the same thing we did against the Chiefs. It's a different offense. They've already seen it for a lot of different reasons. You think one more wrinkle is coming. What that wrinkle looks like, I think, could go a long way in determining this game.
Yeah. Like
you mentioned, how are the Bengals going to get pressure without blitzing? Because that is, of all the things, we've talked about the Rams a ton this year, right? We've spent a lot of oxygen we've spent on the Rams offense. One aspect we have not talked about that much as it relates to the Rams is the way their offensive line is played.
Yeah.
They were 6th in the NFL, 6th lowest pressure rate allowed in the NFL this year, 22%, while averaging the 6th deepest passes in the league.
That's pretty awesome.
That's incredible, that combination. And that's only possible because of the way they play up front. It's not a group laden with superstars. You know, you have Andrew Whitworth, who we all know. Yeah. Rob Havenstein's a good tackle. Brian Allen's had a really nice season. I mean, but they stripped that all group. There was a lot of moving parts there into training camp. Brian Allen only took over as a starting center in like mid-August.
Yes.
And that group has really come together. And a lot of the reasons that the Rams offense is dangerous, the backside dig is only possible if you have time to throw it.
Yeah.
And the expansion we talk about with their offense is made possible because Stafford has been protected. So if you can't blitz them, how do you get pressure with 4? Is there a team in your mind that has given the Bengals a potential blueprint for how you can bug this Rams offensive line and by extension this Rams passing game with the way that you try to attack them?
And that's when you are dropping soft coverage, you have to run games up front. It goes hand in hand. Like we say, everything's connected. If you're not going to blitz, we have to create edginess somehow, some way. It is death to a defense to just run straight up the field over and over and over. Tackles, guards, they know what you're doing every single time. We know how to slide it every single time. So what the Bengals can do, shift the front, and they just got to run games over and over and over. And the Titans game is the one that always comes to mind to me, that the Rams lost against the Titans, is that they were just picking the center. They were getting these guys edgy. You don't want the offensive line to be at different levels. You want it to be a pocket. The people watching the YouTube show can see me making a pocket right here with my hands. Is you want that pocket to be just like that. But it's like piano keys when everyone's kind of like at different levels. Bad. That is bad news for the offensive line, bad news for the quarterback. Again, Bengals fans know what this feeling is like, but they get out of it a lot of times. But you do not want that. I think that Titans game was a big wake-up call for them, because that's when they were feeling themselves. And, and all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, our line can't hold up an empty. Like they're only rushing 4. Like they're not blitzing. Like you could see them really fix what they wanted to do. Like the center wasn't turning as hard. Allen wasn't turning as hard and getting picked. He was kind of using his eyes and making sure he was going to the right spot and giving hands. But that is what the Bengals have to, if they only want to rush forward, that's what they have to do. They have to get some of these fun games, so these fun designs, wear out the offensive line, get their heads moving without bringing 5 or more. It's only bringing 4.
And so you have the potential games with another team that has done that to effect against the Rams in the past in San Francisco. We've seen that, where you have some of these overload fronts. You have some of these twists and stunts. Just a way to get after them with 4. The other thing that the Titans do a ton of, and it was a huge part of their defense, what made them successful, and an area that the Bengals, I think, naturally could drift into, is that sim pressure world. Because they're comfortable walking Pratt down as that to create a 5-man front and then playing with who's coming and who's not. And I think that's another thing that you have to do. You have to create some confusion while ultimately bringing 4 guys. How you do that is a question, but it has to be done. And one element of this that I think is really important, Andrew Whitworth is practicing full this week. He's been dinged up over the course of the playoffs, because that Trey Hendrickson Andrew Whitworth matchup, if Whitworth wasn't 100%, could be one of those few places where it's like, oh man, do the Bengals have an advantage here? And now if they don't, then you have to get even more creative if you're not going to be able to consistently compress the pocket from that side. So how the Bengals manufacture pressure with 4 and how they ultimately say, we're going to deploy these guys in this way to make you a little bit uncomfortable, that to me is going to be really, really important.
That so great with the simulated. It felt like it's so funny how many callbacks we're already having. And this is a different game, the Steelers-Bills game. And they confused the Bills and Josh Allen only bringing 4. And you can see what that can do to a quarterback in the line. It's like they're only bringing 4, and one of them's a DB. And I don't know where to go with the ball. Last week, or I keep saying last week, but the championship game against the Chiefs, that pick that Mahomes had to B.J. Hill, that was a simulated pressure. They dropped the end into the RPO. And Mahomes was like, what the hell is this? And you could see, honestly, his brain blew up. Like you could see it happen on film. And honestly, it's a rule breaker in a sense. You're like, oh, they're bringing a DB, but they're dropping in, but they're only bringing 4, and it can just really mess with your rules because just how they dictate things. If you want to be in 6-man protection, you can waste the running back now. Only bringing 4, and now it's like they have a soft coverage. We're wasting a running back, so we're only getting 4 out against your 7. So you're just taking those. You're just making a little bit. Hey, we're not going to let you be 100%. You're going to be 85%. We're going to hold on to our hats and hope that's enough throughout the game.
What should the Rams run game look like? What runs do you think they can get to based on how the Bengals play up front? If you were kind of building your run game menu for Sean McVay in this game, what would it look like for you?
I'd love watching the Rams run game, even if it hasn't been great this year, because you can see them kind of like poking and prying and working on things. I could see a lot of counter concepts, which they don't run a ton of. I can see, but counter is pulling the guard and usually pulling a tight end as well. They usually throw in as a changeup, and I can see that still being one of their main changeups for this game. And just because of the front that the Bengals might be in.
What about the Bengals front lends to that being effective?
Just the angle. So it might be an under front or even just more of a bearish front.
Explain an under front.
An under front is the nose is towards the tight end side. So you have a 1 technique or a 2-eye or head up, but 1 technique, head up is bare. But one technique, which is the outside shade of the center, and it's towards the tight end side. So that's an under. And in a bare front, it's okay. You have the center and the guards both covered. Counter's a good play against that because of the angles, how the guys have to pull and how the guys have to block.
The bare front we just explained, which Jermaine Pratt walk down, which allows them to run some of those simulated pressures potentially. They'll do that on early downs.
Yes.
So that's, again, just when he's walked down, 57 is, and they're in that 5-1 look, which we've seen a lot against the Rams over the last few years. That would be a potential run against that sort of look.
And the other one is the wineback, which I'm always going to love.
We love the wineback play at the Athletic Football Show.
What's even better is they use Skarsgård on it, so it's just like a double whammy for it. If you give Cooper Kupp a blow, and here comes Skarsgård working around. Someone was like, "Hey, you want to order this?" They made a little Skarsgård custom jersey for me. Like, we'll see. Maybe if he catches a touchdown on the post this week.
If you hit some of these props, we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, exactly. The other run that we can see, and I'm never going to miss an opportunity to mention this play, is duo, and that's because duo against those fronts, duos, double teams, again, it's basically a gap scheme, but it's not without a puller. And on duo, you're creating double teams, but when you see duo, it actually happened against 49ers last week, is it can hit anywhere. That's what duo is not just going to bounce, it's not just going to hit up the front, it's an at you run, but the running back, it can get washed down. How the blocking is, especially if they want to be in a bare front, all the blocking can get washed down. Cooper Kupp can hit his big block on the outside. The running backs can bounce it. And Henderson might play. I think he is going to play. They got a little more speed. Akers is, he's coming back a little bit. He's getting there. He's about, I don't know what he is. I still can't believe he's playing after an Achilles 7 months ago. But those guys can bounce it. So you might see one of those. And that when you bounce it, it makes the corners tackle. So they're going to put it on the corners. But what are the Bengals really good at? Tackling. They're very fundamentally sound just as a whole team. So those are the type of runs that I can really see. And every time you see Wineback, I'll make sure to tweet it out. So because I'm going to be so excited about it.
The Niners did a really good job against the Rams for the most part when they played against each other a couple weeks ago, especially on early downs. Forced the Rams into some third and mediums throughout the game. They crushed them in those third and medium situations, and specifically Cooper Kupp crushed them in those third and medium situations. I am an audio professional. He destroyed them in those moments. That is where the Rams, in my opinion, won that game, was on 3rd and 7 consistently. When the Rams get into those situations, most teams on 3rd down play a lot of man coverage, just the way that it typically goes. And the Bengals are no exception, right? They do play a lot of man coverage on 3rd down, even if it's less than they might have last year. If the Rams come out in those moments and they're in those formations where you have a 2-man stack with Cooper Kupp as the second man in the stack, they do that in order to get him a free release on some of those choice routes. They put him in space against the slot corner, even in one that's pretty solid like K'Wan Williams, just has no chance. There are just too many different options on the table, literally option routes for Cooper Kupp in those moments, because we've seen it. He's willing to take it outside if you're playing inside leverage. He's willing to take it inside if you're playing outside leverage. Or on that touchdown, he's willing to take it vertical if those two options aren't enough. So if you're the Bengals, they're in that stack look with Kupp offset, Van Jefferson in front of him. It's 3rd and 7. What are you doing to slow down Cooper Kupp in those specific situations?
And this is where that robber comes into play. And I'm very curious. It's funny because we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to see if they are in that dime personnel. Because when they have Trey Flowers in there, which might be a Chiefs only defense that they do.
Because in our minds, he was like a Kelsey stopper.
Yes.
He'd played a little bit more over the second half of the season, but he was in there specifically, in our opinion, because his body type, if you're going to play a lot of man coverage, which they did against the Chiefs, is just a really good way to attack Travis Kelce.
One-on-one. But if they're in this robber, I don't think they want to live in two-man, which, Stafford's not going to run it, but Stafford will throw that freaking cell route to Cooper Kupp over and over and over. And that's the problem with two-man is there are answers to it. It's just, quarterbacks got to make a throw.
They're hard answers, but he's a hard answer thrower.
Exactly.
The hard downs for the Rams are not as hard as they are for other teams.
Correct. And so if you want to do Robert, what Robert can essentially do is create a bracket on Cooper Kupp. And you'll have the safety rotating down opposite of what side Cooper Kupp's on. So if the guy pressing Cooper Kupp or playing off, however they want to do it, is outside leverage, then you have this Robert being inside leverage. So if you want to angle it, if you want to take it out, okay, in theory, we should have you covered. What's going to happen is now, what's the second answer for the Rams? They have willingness to answer in other ways. They have this guy named Odell Beckham Jr. They also take into account, and that's why you have a guy like OBJ, because you're going, okay, if you want to play Cooper Kupp and play man and take him out of the game, well, you got this other guy. This other guy can beat you man to man. That's the formula. That you're going to see a lot of that on third down. And also if you want to play soft coverages, that's the other way too. That's the other way is, okay, they want to run all these choice routes. Well, let's make them check it down. The third option, well, the double move is the other. That's kind of the ultimate change up. The third option on those choice routes is if it's zone, is they just sit in space.
Yeah,
I would much rather have Cooper Kupp catching that 5 yards than taking an angle route and going right up the middle. So that's another thing they could say. It's like, hey, we'll just try and beat us with a million gashes.
Do those, so simple, too simple sometimes to frame it as this way. It's like, we'll just double him. When you play some of those man coverages, the Patriots do this all the time. One double whoever. You true double teams in those man coverage looks, if you take that robber and you make him a true double player. Is that harder to do when you're in those stacks and he's set off the line of scrimmage?
Yes, and also with motion. The Rams will do so much shifting and just slight shifts in motions. Hey, this guy's tight split to outside split. We'll switch to where the receivers are. So they'll have like two receivers next to each other, and then they'll just flop their spots. So that's what can be interesting with that. And that's why the Belichick defense, when they want to do the 1-double-17, 1-double-10, any of that, is that all their rules are based on where they lined. Okay, we're saying we're doubling number 10. Okay, if he's in the slot, these are our rules. If he's the lone receiver, these are our rules. If he's in the number 3 spot, these are our rules. That's where it gets tough if you're just throwing this in here for a week's game plan is doing that. It's like you said, if you put him in the slot, you do that. Okay, they can manufacture looks where you get the double out of the play, and then you just got to pray that your number one corner, in theory, that's what you're going to put on, can win one-on-one on the other side.
So if you think about it just structurally, if you have that second safety is a true double look on Cooper Kupp, and he's in the right slot, let's say, in that stack, that's a lot of space over there on the other side for Odell Beckham. You're creating a true one-on-one for him over there against the Chidobe Awuzie, who's had a really nice season. That's still a tough assignment.
Yes.
So that, to me, is why, when we're going to talk about it a little bit later, it could be a big Odell Beckham game. If they're going to have this, if their version of a hyper-specific game plan this week is to say Cooper Kupp is not going to beat us, he's not catching 11 balls in this game, then that's why Odell Beckham is here.
Yes.
And I feel like that's exactly the type of matchup to watch. One kind of specific down and distance situation that you thought was pretty interesting was something that we see from the Bengals on 2nd and long, and an answer the Rams might have for it. So in those 2nd and long situations, what did you notice that the Bengals like to do a lot of?
So 2nd and long, which I consider 2nd and 7 plus, is they like to be in Tampa 2, and they just sit in it. The Tampa 2 is cover 2, and you have the linebacker running right down the pipe. What a play that is a common beater against this is a dagger concept, which is a seam with a dig behind it. And you see T. Higgins, which we're going to talk about, this is his special. But the Rams like it too. They do a 3-man side. It's not just 2-man seam dagger. They like to they'll go into empty formation. Tight end will chip, and then he'll just get to 7 yards. They run their check down really deep. Like the underneath route will be at 7 yards. Most teams teach that at 4. And it's really frustrating because there's not a lot of emphasis on that. And those tight ends will be at like 2 yards. And you're like checking it down at 2 yards. It's like, no, get your freaking depth. And, so we can actually get a first down here. So they really they push. They're always attacking. So if you have this dagger concept, when I was in Wisconsin, I'm not really revealing anything here. When I was at Wisconsin, we called this play Tampa because it was a Tampa 2 beater. It's amazing these terms that we come up with. But that's
I
what
can't wait for the text you're going to get from Paul Chris tomorrow. Just being like, you asshole.
You mother of a. Yeah. And then the play off that was Hooters because Hooters was found in Clearwater. So, yeah, that was the other one. But the other play, too, and this is why you have Odell. If you're going to go in a trips formation, he's your X receiver. Your lone receiver is backside digs. And I think that's the Odell. That's why you get Odell. Robert Woods running those. It's nice. He runs a nice route. Okay, cool. Catch and tackle. Odell catches those. They're going to go out the gate, especially if you got one guy misses a tackle. That's why you bring in Odell, the yards that he creates after the catch. So if I see either a front side dig with Odell or a backside dig with Odell, especially on second and long, I think that's an area that they can attack. It's almost like it's a bad situation for the Rams. Second and long, you never want to be in second and long because probably an inefficient run play that they ran. Okay, well, we'll just hit a dagger on you. And if not, we'll check it down for 7 yards and get it to 3rd and 1 or a first down if the guy breaks a tackle.
It's funny. So in those situations this year, the Bengals, second and long, playing cover 2, they did a lot of it. One of the highest rates in the entire league. I think the 6th most snaps in that specific situation of any defense in the league. Second highest EPA per play in that exact scenario. The only team that was ahead of them was the Bills. And we've just so often over the last month, especially the last 6 weeks, we've talked about how similar the feel is between the Bills and the Bengals and just the way that they like to play, the way that their defense is built, just the smart guys they have on the back end, a ton of similarities there. So I thought that was just a nice little idiosyncrasy kind of curiosity.
It's really fun. I want to talk about one more 1x4 concept.
Lay it on me, buddy.
It's empty, but what's really cool is the Rams will get in literally when you usually say, I'll say 4 strong or 4x1 concept, it's usually the teams in a trips formation and they motion the back right at the snap of the ball. It's a speed motion. You're creating a 4 strong. The play that Skarsgård dropped the touchdown on, I still don't know. Like Skarsgård kind of like took it in a little bit, and Stafford could have laid it up. It's one of those.
The play that the Rams squandered a touchdown on. No matter where you're going to lay the blame.
No, I want Skarsgård to do well. He's a main character this season. So so what's cool is the Rams will straight up be.
He's not a main character.
Yeah,
he's Alexander Skarsgård on Succession. He's a bit character.
I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah, exactly. But it's no, he's Pennywise. No, and they go 1x4 formation, and what's so cool, so it's the tight ends isolated, close split. He's chipping, and then they have 4 strong to the other side. They have 3 receivers and the running back near the left tackle, Whitworth. And on this play, I called it super sail because what they did is they had Van Jefferson running all the way across to occupy the backside safety, and then they just ran a sail concept with Cooper Kupp running the sail, which he is phenomenal on. It's probably one of his best routes because he knows how to sell the over. The overs and sail routes work in hand. That's the 3 angles. You can go straight to the right, to the left, right? So they work hand in hand. And on this play, they create a funky formation. So defense has to communicate right off the bat. Okay, hey, push. We have to do this. Check down, ties down the backside. You got Van Jefferson taking a backside safety. And then you got, okay, are you going to have Cooper Kupp on the sail route or are you going to have OBJ over the top? Pick your poison. That play, I don't think Skarsgård was supposed to be in there. I think OBJ was supposed to be on the poster out there. I think he was taking a blow, and then they called that play, which happens sometimes, which is hilarious. Like it's like, oh, this play. Hey, wait, why isn't Odell in there? Like it happens all the time, especially with running backs. But anyways, on that play, I called super sale. I'm curious if they get into any more of those kind of funky 1x4 looks. Is how I call them.
The one other thing I wanted to mention on this side of the ball, if Higbee is 70%, what impact do you think that has on the game? Because the way that I'm thinking about it, some cheapies on screens, which you've seen from him in a lot of situations. Something else they do with him is when they're trying to dictate coverage at certain aspects of the game, they'll line him up right to the right.
Yep.
Because it's like, all right, well, you're going to tell us, man, if the Bengals want to live in a dime world with Trey Flowers on him in those situations, that feels like something they can do.
Yep.
But if he's out there and you put a linebacker on him in those moments because they're playing more nickel, that's a matchup advantage if he's in that spot for the Rams. If it's Blanton, then I was trying to think of the name of the Rams backup tight end. I just looked it up. I got it. I don't know his first name. It's Kendall.
Kendall, right?
So, all right. So if it's Kendall Blanton, it's a slightly different calculation for the Rams there. Yeah. So obviously Tyler Higbee's not the most important piece on the Rams offense, but if he doesn't play or he's not 100%, just something to take into account, something to think about as we move forward.
Because it could be a big Higbee game, like if he was healthy, that's such a great point. Because not only the underneath stuff, the screen stuff, when it was a really cool sequence to watch against the 49ers. After Higbee got hurt, they ran a out from Kupp, almost like a sail, and then they had Blanton as the lone receiver out there to give a man zone indicator of what they're bringing. And so Blanton's running the vertical route, the takeoff, and then the corner is like, oh, screw that. I'm not going with him. And almost takes Kupp's head off. He gets the catch. It was a first down. And then later in the game, the Rams were like, okay, we noticed that. So they put OBJ on the vertical route and then had Kupp running the same thing. And so the corners falls off again. And then that's when he hit the hole shot to OBJ. Where he it was all set up. They were like, oh, shit, let's put some speed out there. But they like to use their tight ends as man zone tells. They'll put them at the number 2 spot. They'll put them all the way outside in unusual spots. A typical 3-by-1 formation is X receiver is the lone receiver. Y tight end. The tight end's the number 3 spot, closest to the tackle. If we're going to the right, it's the right tackle. Then it's the slot. Then it's the Z receiver. That's what it looks like. What's really cool with the Rams is, they're in trips. They're in 3-by-1, but that tight end could be any of the 4 spots, and they get indicators with that. And it's just something simple, but when you do it over and over, the quarterback can just go, okay, we're all right, cool. All right, we got a linebacker on the slot over there. That's not normal. All right, we're probably getting man here, yada, yada, yada. So you can get those indicators, and that's really cool about the Rams offense. They don't run any crazy shit. I know I just made up that whole 1-by-4 thing, which is really cool. But it's not like the craziest concept they ran. It's just a little window.
But it all connects. It all makes sense. And even just the sheer amount of bunches and stacks that they run. If you're a team like the Bengals that has really weaponized man coverage in certain moments in the playoffs, and that's what they did against the Chiefs.
Yes.
They took certain weird versions of man and they weaponized it in the most important moments of the season. The Rams are very comfortable if you want to sit there and play funky types of man coverage, because they'll line up in trips, bunch formations, and make it hard on you the entire game.
Yeah. You praying your nickel can handle Cooper Kupp, and it's like, okay, you want to double him? All right, well, we got this other guy that.
I hate to break it to you, spoiler alert, nickels have not been able to handle Cooper Kupp this season. No. So unless they're putting 2 guys on him as either a true double team or some of these robber looks that make it a de facto double team, I think it could be a long day.
That double move on K'Wan Williams is like the touchdown that to tie the game, I think it was against the 49ers or take the lead, but whatever, make it a close game. It was like a whole season of setup to that play because
that's why they're so good, right?
Yeah.
The sequencing is insane.
It is.
The sequencing and just like, we're going to swap these 2 guys.
Yep.
We're going to swap these 2 guys in this exact moment. And even having your best receiver line up in the slot on 70% of the plays is a tiny little advantage and matchup breaker that the Rams can tap into with a lot of other teams can't.
Yeah. And that's why Stafford can operate so quick, because they run the same concepts, so they just put everyone in different spots. And that's what good like pass concepts get to. I think a lot of coaches can get caught up and going like, oh, if you get this guy here, and it's like a concept you've never run before. They just run the same stuff and they just tweak where they go, and then they get the indicators they need, and then they run a change up right at the right moment. As long as McVay doesn't throw too many challenge flags early and gets like a little too ahead of himself, gets a little too cute. As long as he just stick to the plan, he'll be fine.
I don't want to belabor this, but I do think it's worth mentioning that the game management side of this is one area where the Rams could be at a disadvantage. If there are some questionable 4th and short calls, if there are some timeout taken in inopportune moments for the Rams, that has been a spot where they're not always in the best situation. And that could become a factor in this game. There's no real analyzing to be done there, but I just think it's worth mentioning.
Always remember the human element
as part of this, right? All right, let's get to the Bengals defense. Let's get to the Bengals offense against the Rams defense. It feels like the Rams defense is kind of set up to be a problem for the Bengals offense. We'll get to the matchups up front. We'll get to the mismatches up front. That's a whole different thing. But as Sheil and Ted pointed out in the piece they wrote this week, Burrow has crushed man coverage this year and single high defenses this year. What do the Rams not do? Right? They don't play man, and they play more 2-deep shells than any other team in the NFL. They're a super zone heavy team, and they play with a ton of that. We're putting the roof over you coverage shell, at least based off base defense. Burrow this year, 18th in the NFL in EPA per play against 2 high looks. 2nd, I believe, against man. So just on its face, if you're doing tail of the tape between these 2 units, it's not exactly the easiest matchup for Cincinnati, even before we get to the personnel that for the Rams is very, very good.
Hey, of course, we all know it. We know the front stuff. I mean, I've already made several jokes about it, like, going Sewell and all that. But honestly, watching that Broncos game back, and we both did it, and watching, I think it was week 15, and watching that game back and seeing how it confounded them. Not just Burrow.
He struggled against the Fangio defense.
He did.
Because it's the 2, when they played the Broncos and they played the Chargers, it did not go well.
It didn't. It's just because that defense, because you're taking away a whole area of the field, but just like we were just talking about with Cooper Kupp maybe getting double teamed, in a sense getting double teamed with the robber stuff, is that, okay, one, you don't always know which guy's rotating down. You have an idea. Most times it's the weak safety, but you never know. That guy can rotate down. And then on top of it, you're making it has to be outside throws, which again, Burrow's comfortable with. We have between Jamar Chase usually to the right-hand side. But if the whole defense knows that's the area you attack, okay, we can play a certain way. We can play on top and rally underneath. We don't have to worry about the flat areas. You kind of dictate them without running anything crazy for you as a defense. And really, as a quarterback, it's annoying. Like, Robert is annoying. That's the best way I can put it. It's just annoying because you're like, this guy's coming down. It's not a linebacker just standing there at 5 yards as a whole player going like, all right, where's the crosser? I'm looking up. It's a safety who has eyes on everything, working his way down, looking where you're going. Like, honestly, watching the Bengals defense do this last week against the Chiefs, it was awesome. The Chiefs ran mesh, and they were running robber. I know we're talking about the Rams defense, but the Bengals defense did this. They're running robber, and they passed everything off. And it was like, Mahomes was like, oh, shit. That's what it does to quarterbacks. Because you're like, oh, man, perfect. We got a crosser coming. Oh, God, that crosser. Oh, my God, the safety just drove and it's about to knock his head off. Oh, I got to scramble. Or, oh, okay, mesh is open. Or I'm just making up. Mesh is going right here. Oh, we got to hit the backside. But then if you have an offensive line that's very holy, and holy, not like blessed, but it's
full of holes,
is that, oh, I can't get to that second option because now I have to hold on to the ball. It becomes a real glorified scramble drill. So that's what it does to you. It just makes the quarterback just hold on to the ball, just like a pressure can, but make him hold on to the ball and just go like, okay, where's my spot? Do I just take go balls over and over? I don't want to do that. Burrow might, like, it's worked for him a little bit, but sometimes that's considered a win for the defense, and especially how the Rams want to play when they have this guy named Jalen Ramsey.
So let's talk about Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Because I think that matchup and the way that they choose to use him is one of the biggest curiosities about this entire game.
Yes.
So what do the Rams do, or what should the Rams do in your mind with Jalen Ramsey as it relates to Jamar Chase?
It's make sure he's on his side is the one way to start. The Bengals like to have Chase on the outside as an X. I keep saying X, but the lone receiver, if it's a 2x2 formation, being on the outside. They started throughout the year, and it kind of Chase kind of like had about 5 or 6 quiet weeks, and then the last 4 or 5 games he blew up again, and that was because they started moving him around a little bit. They went to empty, put him in the slot. They put him just like they motioned him a little bit. They ran screens to him. They're just trying to make it pop a little bit. I just think that this Rams team, because they have this superstar in Jalen Ramsey, just as they're treating Deebo Samuel, it's like, okay, they're learning how to just lock on the guy. And I think that's what you do. If you're in man or any semblance of man, okay, we're going to have him to his side. Or if we're going to be in a pressure, if we run the 5-0 look and bring the 5 guys, they run it, and it's not true man. It's a true match coverage. I said this to you earlier. When match coverage clicked in my brain is that someone said to me, a defensive coach said, it's pressure coverage without the pressure. And so I have number 3. I don't have this guy, but I have the number 3 spot. I have the number 1 spot. And I just think that Ramsey, if they're going to do that kind of stuff, it's always going to be the Chase's side. If they want to motion after that, okay, that's a whole nother story. But I think that's what you have to do.
But so let's talk about the motions, because I think if you're the Bengals and they're willing to shadow him, which I think makes a ton of sense, right? What are the ways that you avoid that? I think it's twofold. You put him in the slot.
Yep.
You try to hide him from Ramsey on the outside as often as you can.
Yep.
That would be a tendency breaker. You have 2 weeks to prepare for this game.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of weird wrinkles and weird changeups thrown in Super Bowls before. I think that would be a way to do it.
Yep.
And another way to do it is you use more motion than you want to.
Yep.
If you look back at that Broncos game, especially early in the game, they're using a lot of jet motion because they want the Broncos to declare which of those safeties is coming down. So I think by motioning Chase a decent amount in this game, 1, you can help declare coverage.
Yep.
2, you can get him away from Jalen Ramsey.
Yep.
Because if you look at the way that Ramsey has been used, especially in the back half of the season, he's only been in the slot on 8% of snaps in the playoffs, according to Next Gen Stats. He was in the slot on 34% of snaps. They've put him back outside. So if you're going to put him in motion, Chase, and you're going to put him in the slot, it may be a way to get him away from Ramsey, even if that's the way that the Rams want to use him in this game.
And it's funny because, I mean, these guys are also competitive and stuff. And it's like, oh, they're hiding him. You can't win one-on-one. It's like, no, you want this.
Why? Why lean into it?
It's amazing that they talk themselves into, you're going to beat him. It's like, no, let's just get him on some scrub and let's let him dominate when you can. It's hilarious. I'm telling you, just how coaches and players work. But no, that's exactly it. Using the motion, using some of those, tying it in on the pass play as well, using the motion on passes. I think the Bengals have a hesitance. They're about average, I think, about motion rate, about runs and passes. I think Seth Walder had a nice tweet about it. But using that kind of stuff, because it just changes up the look. What did we say? It was the one double coverage with the Patriots. How do you make it hard on them? Well, you got to put them in different spots. You don't just put them as the X receiver, the lone guy. You don't become predictable. You can run the same concepts. The Bengals like to run. They have core concepts they like to run. Okay. And so we've run this 989 concept that we've hit Jamar Chase on the go ball. Let's put Jamar Chase at the 8 route, in the middle, and have him run an inside dig. It's stuff like that. It's just little change-ups. Get this guy in the isolated spots and away from the other superstar that he might be going across. Sometimes this sounds simple. Oh, put him on motion. It works. It freaking works. Yeah.
And because the Bengals, we've talked about this, they like a more static picture because that's why they line up in shotgun. They like to give Joe Burrow an understanding of what he's about to face.
Yes.
That gives him an advantage. But against this team, the Rams want to run zone coverage.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to put Chase in the backside of 3-by-1 sets, even if the Rams are playing quarters or playing cover 3, it's not quarters or cover 3 to that side. It's man. That's the entire reason that Jalen Ramsey is as valuable as he is, is because for a zone-heavy team, he essentially plays man coverage in those situations. So if you're going to put Jamar Chase out there, you're inviting one-on-one matchups with arguably the best cornerback in the league. That doesn't make sense.
Nope.
It's not a smart way to play. It's not the path of least resistance in this game. Hiding him isn't some sign of weakness or cowardice.
No.
It's the easiest way to make the game simpler for your offense.
And it was really the Bengals. Again, it's such a good point that you made, is that they have 2 weeks to prepare. It's like coming off a bye week. This Bengals entire offense shifted after their bye week during the regular season. That's just how they emphasize certain things. Okay, if they have great tape to watch because of how the Rams use Ramsey on Deebo Samuel. And if you watch it in the 49ers game, was Deebo Samuel will be a little like, be a 2-by-2 formation or something of that sort. Okay, we're just going to motion him across. And now you're wasting Ramsey on a back tight end chipping, and it's just like, so Ramsey's hanging out back there. Okay, that's great film you can copy. It's just going like, oh, well, you could just do that. So even if it's like there's not their first idea, they're going to be watching those games and going like, oh, okay, well, we can just utilize those types of formations. Okay, what do we like to run out of that formation? Okay, so we start in 2-by-2, we go to 1-by-3. Okay, how do we do that? All right, this is that. And so they have stuff to work off. They have a game plan, a blueprint that they can kind of copy a little bit.
The one other aspect of this, just in that specific matchup, and I want to get into how it affects the other receivers in this game as well, but the Rams played more off coverage than any other team in the league this year, according to Next Gen. Jamar Chase flamed teams that played him off this year. Even if he's better against press coverage than we thought he was going to be, he still is worse when you try to muscle him up at the line of scrimmage than he's been when you give him free releases. Are the Rams more comfortable if he's going to play outside and Ramsey is going to be over him, letting him be up there right in his face for most of this game in the way that they don't typically play? Again, just a little wrinkle that might be tailored specifically to this matchup.
I'm so excited about this potential matchup, and we'll get like 3 snaps.
Of course we will.
Yeah, I remember,
but we have to talk about it.
We do. I remember in like 1999, Moss played Deion. Like it was like the first time Moss and Deion went against each other. Deion Sanders when he was with the Cowboys, and everyone's geeked up the whole week. They lined up against each other 2 snaps. It was just like it's like, oh, whatever. I still vividly remember that, but yeah, exact same thing.
So if we do get a world where Jalen Ramsey and Jamar Chase are lined up over each other and that matchup does happen, what does that mean for T. Higgins in this game in your mind, who will likely in those situations be lined up against Darius Williams, who is my size? Not an exaggeration.
That's amazing. So, by the way, we talked about, but we watched. I've never met Justin Herbert in person. I didn't meet him, but I saw him walk by. It's like, holy shit! Like it's like I know I'm tall, but it was like this guy is an athlete. Like that guy is like, yeah, no wonder you look like you look.
Lies. Darius Williams is 2 inches shorter than me. We weigh the same. He's 5'9". So you have 187. This is pretty much exactly where I'm at right now. After all the pasta I've eaten this week, it might be more than that. But he's 5'9". You have 6'5" T. Higgins.
True ball winner, T. Higgins. They have 2 after the T. Higgins game the other day. They have 2 X receivers. I say Chase is the X. T. Higgins is a true.
Yes, he's a real X.
A traditional X receiver. The guys I love is like that. True ball winner. And the ways they really like to get T. Higgins involved is, okay, if you want to play zone coverage, we're going to get him on digs and in breakers. We're going to get him on those routes coming from the outside and finding this voided area, the intermediate area that really we just talked about with the Rams too. Same concept, dagger. They love dagger. They love having him on the in breaker. The 49ers game is like the best one where you could see T. Higgins, like it opened up. It was like a revelation for the Bengals offense. Like, oh shit, we can use this guy on this? Oh, that's fun. We just have him going across. The other play is think the Bengals like being an empty. They've learned to like utilize new concepts out there. They don't run as much quick game. It's more intermediate 5-step, which is the intermediate type of concepts that you see in more. You're attacking the 8 to 18 yard areas. They run this concept where they'll have T. Higgins all the way on the outside to the trip side, and they're out of empty. And then they'll have Jamar Chase on the slot to the left. I'm just going to right-hand formation here. They'll have the tight end all the way out, singled up with Chase. They'll run 2 Higgins side. They'll run 2 verticals, and they just have T. Higgins running underneath.
Just a little tiny crosser, little drag underneath.
It's a different way to create a high-low, and that's the best way I can put it. Is you have these 2 vertical routes. You don't have a bender coming right behind them. It's like a true high, but it's more like a runoff. It's like a screen without a screen, like without blocking.
Yes,
that's really what it is. And then big ass 6'5" T. Higgins running underneath, who's my height, running underneath, and then you got a guy that's like you said, your size, trying to tackle that. That's hard to tackle. That's a big man.
And not even just tackling, but also the frame.
Yeah.
And that's why, so that play that you're talking about, we mentioned it earlier today when you and I were talking, they ran against the Broncos. And when I saw that happen, it was like a eureka moment. It was like, aha, that absolutely could work if they're doing more empty. Yeah. And the other side of this is, how many slants are we going to see?
Yeah.
Because if you have that, when we think of big body receivers, we think of ball winning, down the field, jump balls, all that shit. If you're running slants, that catch radius comes up. Think about what the Bengals were doing late in that game against the Chiefs.
Yep.
It was Joe Burrow bullshit, or it was T. Higgins slants.
Yeah.
That was the offense.
Yep.
So having that break in case of emergency side of this, I think is really, really important to take into account.
They'll go empty, and they also do this out of like 3-by-1, and they use the back on it. So people have made fun of McCarthy's, Rodgers' years with slant flats. The thing about slant flats and why they ran it all the time, and really the little hidden story about this is Rodgers used to check into that. It's not just McCarthy calling that. It's Rodgers liked that play because he always had answers to every coverage, in theory. Unless the defense is playing hard, and that's what defenses started to realize. Oh, you want to just keep running a quick game against us? All right, we're just going to tackle on some 4-yard gain. Like, nice, inefficient run you basically did. So with the Bengals run it, they'll either go in like a 3-by-1. They do have empty as well. They run slant flats, and they'll have the back run the flat out to the side. And they'll have Uzama. Got his name right. They'll have Uzama. This is where you see, hi, Mina. We are. You are on camera.
We're on camera.
Mina Kimes.
Rams 31, Bengals 28.
Oh, all right. It's still the under.
This is where you get a ready or row.
Huh? Are you joining the crowd over there? Are you going to crowd surf with them?
No, I'm actually like a huge McAfee fan. That's why I'm here.
How you doing?
What are we talking about?
We're doing a podcast.
Detailed outline.
Yeah, this is what we do here.
Yeah. We're talking about Uzama and slant flats.
I love those whip routes.
That's next. Spoilers.
So
See me.
we talk about Higgins doing that second kind of thing. We're talking about Higgins as that secondary receiver. What does this mean for Tyler Boyd and even Joe Mixon? Because one of the things they do with that slant flat with the Bengals, they'll have Mixon run the flat.
Yeah. And
if we're talking about some of the weaknesses of this Rams defense, you're putting Troy Reeder in that space. You're trying to get him playing out there. And then the other side of this, I think if we're talking about empty, and we're talking about the Bengals version of empty, just imagine it in your mind and imagine what that does to the Rams. If Tyler Boyd is in that number 3 spot in those empty formations, you got Troy Reeder if he's in the game. I want to talk about that in a second. If he's that single linebacker in that moment, you have that number 3 receiver playing against him in space. Do we see some of those whips from Tyler Boyd? Do we see some of those choice or option routes in those third and short, third and medium sort of scenarios?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to have this entire game plan defensively structured to stop Chase, which makes sense, do we have Higgins on those inbreakers against Darius Williams? And do we have Tyler Boyd in space against whoever's playing linebacker? That, to me, is how you start building this game plan for the Bengals that works.
And mentioned the empty before, and that it gives a picture to the quarterback. Hey, if you want to bring a pressure, we see this. If you want to hide the coverage, okay, we're in empty, and you got a lot of ground to cover at backside safety. That's what empty can do. It can strain the defense horizontally, as far as pre-snap look. And the limitations are, if you don't chip help like the Rams do, is it can feel tight. Everything can just feel tight. That play is like with the Bengals. That play is like the epitome of what they've this next step they've taken out of the empty formations, is because if you want to be an empty, if you want to run a 5-0 front, if you want to run soft coverage, and we can manipulate where we go. I just mentioned the 3-by-1 formation going to wide tight end at the 3 spot. Bengals do some fun stuff, like you said, where they put Boyd where the tight end should be. Yep. And so they'll run 4 verts, and on a 4 verts concept, usually it's the running back running like a little inside out route, like how he can just have a 2-way go. called a balloon route because it can go any which way. And so they'll have Boyd on that. So what they do, and teams will do this, and basically it's like a designed choice route check down. I guess
it's a choice. It's a jerk. It's
Yeah,
whatever you
jerk,
want.
wanna
It's
call
whatever
it.
you want it to be.
Yes,
you know?
it's a balloon.
Yeah.
Go any which way. So what it does, though, if you want to be in a zone coverage, you're going to be a quarter shell. That's what Rams will be in pre-snap. You want to be in a quarter shell. All right, well, there's your linebacker, who we have identified several times on this show, and not in a good way, in coverage against a good slot receiver, one of the better slot receivers in the league, who can probably tear him up to pieces.
So I see a possible timeline here where we don't get a lot of Troy Reader in this game. I have it on good authority because Jordan Rodriguez covers the Rams. I was talking to her earlier.
And she's amazing.
But Weddle is wearing the dot. Okay. They're going to have to keep him on the field. I think that there are going to be moments in this game.
What a callback, a safety green dot, man.
Safety green dot. And a safety who's been back in the league for 2 weeks that didn't run this defense before a month ago.
He's like, I got it.
It's insane. Okay.
He's drawing him up in the dirt. Like
so Taylor Rapp is healthy. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
The Rams ran dime personnel the third most of any team in the league during the regular season, 26% of snaps according to Next Gen.
Okay.
They've run it 2% of the time in the playoffs.
Okay.
Taylor Rapp's been hurt the
Yep.
entire playoffs.
Yep.
Ernest Jones, who's the linebacker they won on the field, has been on a pitch count. 2 weeks to prepare. Rapp is back. You don't want Troy Reader on the field that much. You need Weddle on the field because he's calling the plays for you.
Yeah.
Do we see a world where they're in dime, Burgess and Scott are on the back end, it's Weddle and Jones in those two linebacker spots, where you feel much better about the matchups. You feel much better, period, about getting dime personnel back on the field because it's your best set of players, especially against a team where you're not worried about them running the ball on you.
And we talk about best five, getting your best five out there for the offense, like basketball lineup. Same with the defense. Get your best plays out there. It's like, honestly, Weddle coming off the streets, it's like, yeah, he's one of your better players because at least he's heady.
Well, let's think of the matchup, right?
Yep.
So let's just think of the 11, okay? Be Darius Williams, Jalen Ramsey, David Long, Eric Weddle, Terrell Burgess, Nick Scott, Leonard Floyd, Von Miller,
Aaron Donald,
and Ashawn Robinson.
Nice.
Right? And then 11 would be Ernest Jones.
Yep.
So those are your 11. That's your dime
Very
personnel.
impressive, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I would have gotten about 7.
So that's your dime personnel, and that makes sense.
Yep.
Like those are the guys that you would want back, or Rapp for Burgess.
Yep.
So like you put more safeties out there, you get lighter personnel. But Weddle gets to stay on because he's your play caller, and you have Ernest Jones that is not even close to as much of a matchup disadvantage in those situations as Troy Reader would be.
And
so do we see less Troy Reader snaps? Is the long-winded conclusion I'm trying to come to here?
Probably.
Right.
And honestly, that's why we saw it twice recently, is why the 49ers were such a bad matchup for the Rams. They want to be in light personnel. 49ers are like, all right, we'll be in 21-12, and we're going to
that's why they
run it up your ass.
Tilt 6-1 fronts the entire game last week.
Exactly.
It's funny because I almost didn't watch the NFC Championship game as prep for this game because it's like, well, this doesn't matter. Like none of this is applicable, which is pretty funny, all things considered. The most recent game. So the guy I almost forgot when listing off the Rams defense, one of the 5 greatest defensive players of all time, is Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
So if you're the Bengals, or let's say if you're the Rams, what should your plan be for putting him in a position to wreck this game? Because he legitimately could win this game by himself if put in the right situations often enough.
Have somebody lined up over the center so he can't slide to a direction, and have Aaron Donald over that right guard
the entire
every single snap. Every single expected passing snap, just do it. Just spam it. Just do not let them slide to you. So how you do that is you occupy the center, because the center, if you're going to have an overload front, we mentioned the 49ers did this, the Titans have did this against the Rams, is, okay, if he's a shaded over to the right side, I'll slide and be a part of this kind of like this half slide that we could just wad it up. It's almost like zone blocking, but pass setting. All right, but if we have him head up and don't know if it's a two-way go, the center has to set straight back. He can't help. He can't go rip, which is right hand call. He can't go Liz, which is left hand call. I'm assuming Zach Taylor uses rip and Liz, like 95% of the offenses. But all that, he can't do that. Now we have Aaron Donald one-on-one. And they don't even need to do the 5-man looks where they have 5 across the board. They can just do that with 4.
But what if they do the 5-man looks?
Yes.
Then it's like, because here, if they do those 5-man looks, so you look at the Rams, just the numbers, okay? Line up in 5-man fronts on 52% of snaps, the 4th highest rate in the league. On first and second down, they blitz. They bring 5 guys on 27.5% of first and second downs, which is the 7th highest mark in the league. They actually have the same blitz rate essentially on first, second, and third down. On early and late downs, the Rams have the same blitz rate. Cool, so they're a high blitz rate team on first and second down early downs, a low blitz rate team on third down.
Yeah.
Okay. Which makes sense. Maybe that's the same approach.
Yeah.
So if you're in that 5-0 look, is it worth saying we're going to do a 4-man slide to Donald's side no matter what and leave the left tackle and the back against those two and just say, even if they both come, we're more comfortable living in that world? Is that worth it to you?
That's probably what they'll have to do. And you know what's another thing the Rams will do is they'll go 4-man front, but they'll have a linebacker over the other guard. So
that's the 5-man front I'm talking about, almost, with that second linebacker walk down.
What it forces us to do, even if the linebacker drops out, it forces the offensive line to honor it and go, and usually it's called a 5-0 call or a 5-down call. They have to go, hey, if these 5 come, we have to take them. We're not going to just let this guy go through.
That's what I'm saying. Don't treat it like that.
No,
don't treat it like a 5-man front. Yeah. Don't treat him like a threat, because that's what they want you to do. I would say we dare you to bring him, because you don't want to Blitzboro.
No.
You don't want to bring that extra guy because of what he can do. And just think about it structurally. If they bring that second linebacker down, you only have 1 guy in the middle of the field, and now you have T. Higgins on some of those inbreakers alone against Darius Williams. That's a lot of space for him to work with in a matchup that's advantageous for the Bengals.
It's 1 missed tackle from disaster.
Boom.
Yes.
And that's
not the double chip boom. That's the boom down the field. But that's what it is. That's what the spread offense is. The whole philosophy of spreading guys out is the same almost like in the option offenses. You miss 1 tackle, you are screwed.
Yep.
Same kind of thinking. That's all it is. Football's hilarious how it just comes back to the same thinkings and thoughts that like just apply for all of this. And that's the exact same way. And the Rams, though, have to be cognizant of that. Hey, they have a 4-man slide working Donald's side no matter what. All right, let's get Von Miller ISO'd up.
Which is what's going to happen.
That's
literally, it's Von Miller against Jonah Williams, which becomes a huge matchup.
Yes.
And it's so funny because we talked about this so many times. They got these guys for this reason.
Yes.
For when you have to spend resources, attention, time, focus on taking away Donald and Kupp, who arguably were the best players on their respective sides of the ball the entire season in these huge, huge games, you inherently leave yourself vulnerable to one-on-one matchups. Do the Rams have guys that can take advantage of those one-on-one matchups? Yeah, they got them in October.
They have a couple guys. I think one of them won Super Bowl MVP just a couple years ago.
It's just so amazing how even, it's kind of disjointed. Was it worth going to get these guys? And then you get to the Super Bowl and you think, in the perfect matchup or the perfect game plan for the Bengals, the guys that are there to take advantage of it are Von Miller and Odell Beckham.
Yes, this is why you get stars. This is why you get them, because you create one-on-ones. When you in grading and scout grading, it's like, excellent, very good, yada, yada, yada. It's this guy dominates opponents every play is like the excellent player. This guy dominates opponents most of the time. This guy, and it's like that's how you scale it. Stars, it dominates opponents. If it's a weaker opponent, every play. And that's what a Von Miller type can do. It's not just like, everything's right. He can maybe get the sack. Okay, he ends the year with 5.5 sacks. It's every time he's one-on-one, it's, oh, shit. Oh, shit. We don't have chip help over there. We're in empty. Oh, God. Like, you're making offenses do that every single snap. And guess what? They have 2 of those guys, and they line up in different spots. And that's the other thing, too, is that the Bengals, I've really complimented them on this, because this is really where I was like, hey, they're kind of changing what they do. It's the first time to play against the Ravens. They run the 7-man protections with the tight end and the running back. It doesn't really work against these types of fronts because the guys are 5-0 look. It's not some safety or some DB really coming from depth. And that's where the tight end picks them up, the running back picks them up. So it's kind of like they're one real nice changeup where they get this chip help. It's not really conducive to what the Rams are going to bring against them.
So the one other thing that I would think about with, all right, if there's a way, this is really cool. This is not a workspace or anything. So the other thing I would say when it comes to, all right, how are the Rams going to, or how are the Bengals going to mitigate the impact of that pass rush and the disadvantages they have against that front? Empty, get rid of the ball quick.
Yes.
Get rid of the ball quickly. It's not the most exciting or dangerous way to be offensively, but it is an answer. The Rams,
it's like the bird
coaxed out.
It's like the bird and Flintstones. It's a living. Like
the Rams kind of teams to have the 3rd quickest time to throw in the NFL this year, 2.66 seconds. Makes total sense. Bengals comfortable living in that world. The other side of this, the Rams were not good against screens this year. They're not a good screen team because our boy is part of this screen situation, right?
Yes.
So if you can take advantage of them in one area of the field, it is short passes over the middle of the field and to running backs.
Yep.
Do we see a Samaje Perine, spoiler alert, we'll get to him later, type screen against this team that the same way we saw against the Chiefs? So I think that's one more way that can we find a couple chunk plays where they might be a little bit harder to find over the course of this game.
Yeah, and a stat that I kind of came across, and this is, again, spoilers, led to my player prop, is that the Rams are 24th in DVOA in pass defense against running backs. And that's just, it's a kind of not double sword, but like a multi thing here, multifaceted thing here, is that the Rams will push for depth in their coverage, and you have Troy Reader on the island. And so with that, it's okay, well, we got to check it down, and then Troy Reader's got to tackle. So that's where you see it's kind of like a double thing. It's like, okay, we're going to let you check it down to him. He still has to tackle. Like, he still has to make that play on an island. Again, you miss one tackle, it's a big play. Eli Mitchell got him last week. I keep saying last week, 2 weeks ago. Oh my God. But any of that, it all ties in together. And so like, you're going to see that. And I love the point you made with the screen. Also, it's Burrow, it's the under center and the gun game for the Bengals is just so wildly different. It's hilarious how they've gone this whole year. I think it was 75% under center. When the Bengals are under center, 75% is a run play. They need some nakeds. Nakeds are a way to alleviate offensive line woes.
They need play action on early downs. They need nakeds. They need 7-man pass. They need 7-man pro.
Sprint outs.
If they're going to sit there and run the ball on 1st and 10 and have a 31% success rate again,
Suicide.
The same way they did against the Chiefs, and you're sitting there in 3rd and 7,
Suicide.
there aren't going to be escapes
No.
on 3rd and 7 against this team.
No.
There's going to be Aaron Donald like throwing around Joe Burrow's body for the 4 quarters. That they cannot have that happen.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to give yourself chances on those early downs when they're in those 5-0 looks.
Yep.
When you have some of those just in breakers on quick routes, when you can get into some let's take a shot type play action looks. They need to do that in this game if they're going to survive.
Yeah, the common like adage is like you have to change the launch point. That's what changing the launch point is. Yep. It's changing the timing. It's running a 3-step concept, 5-step concept, 7-step concept. So that way the defenders, it's really cool to see good players over games. At first, we always do it like opening script happens, like, wow, they really nullified Aaron Donald there. Players feel out the game as it goes along. They go, okay, there's my guy. I got this next time. Okay, this guy keeps quick set me. Okay, every time 3rd down, they're doing this. Good players learn, and you see it throughout the game. So you might get them a couple times, but you're trying to change up the timing for all of it, not just with dropbacks. Sprint out's another great way to do this. I don't know what their numbers are with sprint out. They don't really do it that much, but sprint out is sprint out. The quarterback sprints out to the side, but they run. It's a safe protection because you'll have a 7-man protection usually or 6, but it's a sliding protection. You don't have to sort anything out. We wad it up. The quarterback gets away. You change the launch point. And guess what? If we have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase run the 2-man concept, that's a pretty good pairing. So, someone might win over there. That's the other way is nakeds, and the other way is screens. It's just that you're trying to get Troy Reader. I know we keep bringing up his name, but you're trying to get him running side to side, going, oh my God, I have no idea.
Which is another reason I think motions for runs. Do we see some jet into some split zone in a similar way that the Niners have been able to run the ball on this team over the last couple of years? All right.
Can't be predictable.
Very quickly here. Build me a Bengals upset. Build me a 3-prong Bengals upset.
Defense does that. They did what they did Mahomes in the second half.
I want to see him pat the ball.
Yes.
I want to see him pat the ball once, twice, 3 times.
The feet start pattering, and
if you get 1 or 2 more beats. We talked about this on Ollie Conley earlier this week. You get 2 extra beats on him 3 or 4 times in this game, and we talk about the stunts and the games, some of the sim pressure stuff. If you can condense the pocket with a 4-man rush, make him hold on to it a little bit. That's where it starts to me.
Mm-hmm. And make them work for it.
Yes.
And which they're willing to do. It's not like this is that we keep mentioning the Bengals are such a good tackling team. They can do this. They can make it hard on you and go, yeah, that's 8 yards. All right, you got to get
those are fine. You can live with those.
You got to convert 4 3rd downs in one series. You know how hard it is to convert 3rd down? That's why passing downs and 3rd and 4th downs get brought up so much, because it's its own little game within a game. Okay, maybe we just have an awesome 3rd down package, and the whole plan is
Cooper Kupp. That's 3rd down package.
That's the Rams 3rd down package. Get them on an island. Good luck guarding them. But
that's really that.
It really is. It really is. I know. When you have good players, it's great. I know. And that's what. Oh my God, just rewatching because it's fun. It's really fun for the playoffs when you start watching like middle season games again and late season. You're like, oh man, I forgot about this. It's like because every week we just black out after the Sunday show. It's like just everything just spills out of my ears. But it's like when you watch that and you just watch Cooper Kupp on the island over and over and just watching these DBs just go, holy shit, I can't choice routes, sail routes, over routes.
It's being uneasy. And I think, and we're talking with Mitch on tomorrow's show about this a little bit on Saturday's podcast that we're going to do, just about how when you watch a guy on an island against Donald, he's so uneasy.
Yeah.
Because he can beat you so many different ways. And I think it's building more of this upset. Can you make your offensive line feel comfortable by whatever your game plan looks like?
Yep.
Can you make sure we're getting 4 hands on Donald at the same time? He knows he's getting help. Can we make sure that we're using some more max protection play action shots? Just making your offensive line feel comfortable while you make their offensive line feel uncomfortable. Those to me are the first 2 aspects of this.
And Rams have to tackle. Why they're poor against screens is they'll just let guys go. What Deebo Samuel highlights, they look like high school tape, like where it's just the most dominant player. Don't let that happen. You know who's really good on running our screens is Jamar Chase. Yep. We can ask the Titans. So you have to tackle. It's a fundamental game.
They need to manufacture and conjure some of of those big plays.
Yeah.
They need a Jamar Chase screen. Yep. They need
their stars.
They need a T. Higgins slant that goes for 60 yards.
Yep.
They need a couple of those splash plays that aren't down the field splash plays.
Yes.
And I think that the other side of this is Jalen Ramsey has been gotten on a couple of these deep plays during the playoffs specifically, right? I mean, you would think about the Mike Evans touchdown. Can they find one over-the-top shot, and can they find 1 or 2 other explosives on yak opportunities they create with those guys?
We're geeked up for the matchup. Now imagine a competitor like Jalen Ramsey.
Yep.
Can you imagine a double move?
Yep.
We might see something like that. A sluggo. I've seen Jamar Chase get a sluggo.
Rams will run plenty of cover 3 on early downs. Yep. Plenty of cover 3. They're going to do it out of the shell.
Yep.
But they're going to want to rotate down. So can you use some jet motion on early downs to make them declare and say, all right, I got 3 now. I've got that one-on-one on the outside. Can I hit him on a 50-50 ball? Can I push down the field a little bit more? Can I not get scared? Because the reason that shell works and what it's designed to do is you're dropping that safety down into the intermediate area of the field. You're trying to take away crossers. In the end, if you're dropping into cover 3, you still have one-on-one on the outside. Like, there's nothing different about that.
Still man.
So if you're using some motion on early downs, having them declare, same way they did against the Broncos, and they're saying, we have that one-on-one on the outside, can you take advantage of it one time in that Jalen Ramsey, Jamar Chase matchup?
They're going to have opportunities, and it's like they just have to hit them.
Yes.
The Rams offense is going to have chances. They're going to have more. The denominator is going to be larger. Like, they're going to have more chances to make those big plays. Do they hit all of them? Probably not. Most likely never. That's when you get to see the big scoring games. That was Burrow going against the Ravens the second time when they have a skeleton crew on defense. But honestly, that's the Bengals are going to still get chances. You always have chances. Doesn't matter what the matchup is. They have to hit them at a high rate. It might be a low denominator where it's like, okay, we only had 7 of them. They have to go 6 for 7. Yeah, they have to. There's going to be times where the blocking's held up, defensive line's tired. Someone stumbles, the safety rotates the wrong way. Green dot doesn't make the call because he doesn't know what the coverage is.
Or Eric Weddle's been he's been back for 2 weeks. He's like, he's again my age, and he's been out of the league for however long. The fact that he's calling plays on the defense and he's been here for a month is insane.
It's insane.
He didn't play in this system. The
ridiculous.
defense is new.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It's I know you're saying right now. It's crazy. Like, do you know the mental capacity it is to have that? Because you're not.
It's wild.
It's to learn a defense.
He's the defensive play caller.
Yeah. To learn a defense is hard enough, a guy off the street, and I get Weddle's smart and all that, but then he has to communicate. So if he doesn't know a term, he can't make shit up and go, oh, I think this was this. He has to hear every single one of those plays. It's ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous that they have that happening.
The other side of this, let's say the 4th prong, whatever this upset would look like.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is a special player.
Yes.
He is a special player. I don't want this to be like too much about like magical nonsense. He has some magical nonsense to him.
Yeah.
And that is going to be, that pixie dust is going to need to be a part of whatever this recipe looks like. So I think that is also very important to take into account.
Absolutely.
That's all we got right now, though. On the audio version of this, guys, Sheil is going to be coming up a little bit later. If you guys are watching on YouTube, we're going to get out of here. We're going to let the party behind us kind of take hold and not fight against it anymore. Really appreciate you guys listening. If you guys are listening on the podcast, we're about to get to Sheil.